Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday again. More box making coming your way. So, anyway, gee, I'm hopeless at being funny. Anyway, good morning to John Porter. Good morning, Michael Peel, and good morning to everybody else. Rightio, today we're on Series 2, Box 1, so the small uneven sided box, and during the week I got a little bit busy and I put together a couple of the boxes that I was making. As you know, I generally build a number of the boxes, go through the processes so that I can bring you good information rather than dodgy stuff. So what I've done is I've got three versions of it here at the moment. Pam's just going to come in with the camera. So today what we're going to do is we're going to fit one of the lids. Now it's not just a simple little process. The thing about the lids is that first of all they're pin hinged, so it's just another form of hinging that works occasionally with little boxes. So we're going to have a little play with that. And secondly, what we're going to do is we're going to shape it a little bit. So when you look at the top of there, you might be able to see it better on this one. You can see that we've got what appears to be a little beak on it, and it fits nice and neat. It's actually quite a neat little way of fitting things. It's just a matter of grabbing hold of or lifting, putting a little beak on it, rather than doing this, which is something that I do often. This one here, you can see what I've done is I've added a little piece of similar material to that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this version today. The thing about this version is that it takes 3 different steps just to make that little piece there, so we're going to have to do that as well. So lots of little stuff. Grab yourself a cup of tea or a coffee or something like that, and a comfy chair, and we'll get you through the whole process. There's building a jig, there's doing lots of different things. So here we go. So I'll just take these off the bench and put them over on this bench. I'll more than likely grab 1 or 2 of them as we go. And this is the box that we put together the other day. So what I've done with it is planed off all of the excess material that was protruding through the sides of the boxes when we cut the dovetails, and now it's just a matter of getting it to fit. Now one of the things that happens when you fit some things together, they're not always perfect. If I was doing things by hand, it'd probably be a bit different story, but we're doing everything with a machine, so therefore, and as you're aware, most of the stuff we do is done without measurements. So what we're going to do here, what I have to do is I have to level out the tops of these to make sure that the top of that is parallel to the bench, and then of course it's got to be the same as this side here. So I've got to take a little bit off the top. I want to cut a rebate in here for the lid to fit. Now the first box that I made one of these, one of the walnut ones, and I like to have the walnut or the front timber continue over the lid down the back, which is what we've got here. And what I did was I built a lid to fit it, but I made it out of silver ash. Now I decided not going to do that. It's going to look a bit odd having walnut, silver ash, walnut. It looks okay this way, but the grain doesn't follow. The grain here is this way, and it doesn't follow over the box like that, unless I did it this way, but it doesn't look very nice that way. So I thought I'll do it this way, and so I changed it to a walnut lid, and I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll use this lid on this box here. So normally what I would do is I would cut the rebate first, and then I would get another piece of material and then I cut it to fit the space. This time I'm going to go around the other way. If it doesn't fit, well then I use the other piece, but we'll see how we go. So the first thing I have to do is I have to flatten off the tops of that, cut the rebate, and level out this area here. So what we want is that all parallel to the bench. So the first task is to use a router bit. Now in the past I was using just a spiral bit to do that, which you can use, but I've decided I'm going to start using this one a little more often, which works really, really well. And it's a compression bit put out by Carby Tool. See if I can put that there so you can see it. So that's what it looks like. Oh, that's what it looks like. A dangerous looking tool, but it does a really, really good job. 1/2 inch drive. It does fit. As you can see, it's a
bit of a beast.
Awesome piece of kit. And what I want to do is I want to dress the top of that piece, but I don't want it to be. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit above. Now what I need to do is I need to put my finger caught in it. I need to use a fence. I'm going to use a small fence because it's easier to film with for this process. And the beauty of our bench is that you can use it from any direction, so I can work around the bench if I want to. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back between the router bit and the fence, which means I've got to go backwards. So I've got to come from this direction here, so Pam's going to probably have to come around this side to get the bit of filming done. So what I'm doing here, you can come in here, is I'm lining the corner of my piece of material here up against the edge of the router bit and up against the fence, of course. Alright. As you can see, it's quite a sharp router bit, and I just want that to just touch the piece there, and turn it over and see if it's the same on the other side. And as you can see, that one's probably a little bit and I'll just check to see that I've got this out. It's a bit difficult to film this one. Just check to see that I've got happening on that corner as well. So I've checked all 4 corners to see that we get a pass. And that's going to work quite well. Now, if you're trying to set your distance from the top of the box to the bottom of the box, this is a good way of taking a little bit of material off there just to set your distance there. That distance should be around about 10 millimeters. I know I've got a little bit more, so I'm in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do is, because I want to cut across here, I'm going to run through this way. That way, because the router bit spins around this way, it's going to push the piece against the fence, which is what I want to do. That way it's a whole lot safer. If I was coming the other way, it tends to pull it away from the fence, and then you do some damage on the top here, which means you have to fiddle around with it. The other alternative is to sit it there, scribe yourself a mark on there, and use a plane to plane some of that material off. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use my router bit, my router. So, ears on everybody. Okay, so now what I have is I have this surface here and this surface here parallel to the bottom of the box. So if I turn it over, it'll sit nice and flat on the bench. Okay, so I've actually tidied that up. Now what I need to do is I need to cut my rebate in both of those, and I'll use a different router bit for that. So
swap
another
places.
little dance around the router table.
Synchronised woodwork.
Synchronised. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Synchronised woodwork. I'm not wearing my swimmers to do that.
Please don't.
Got to be really careful with that router bit. It's quite sharp, and it's got edges all over the place. And you can buy those in 2 flute or 4 flute. Now the router bit I'm going to cut the rebate with is our tenon cutter. Okay, so that's going to be the step on the shoulder. Now when we're setting up for this, we're using the corner edge of the router bit, and we're going to set the corner edge to the highest one we have. So we've got to measure from that distance there to this point in here. Now they all have to be the same. So let's set that router bit to that. This takes a little bit of a fiddle, so I'll be wandering around the table. Okay, so what we can see here now is the corner of that is just touching the corner here. So that's just touching that corner there. So what I want to do is check the other one. Okay, so it's going underneath, so I've got to bring the router bit up a little bit. So obviously it's
It's a bit hard to be able to show that. I can't get the camera in tightly, but I think people understand what you're trying to do.
a bit of failure happening here. So it's just touching that one there. A bit higher on that one. Turn the box around. Higher on that one. Just touching there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I have to get the right distance in here to fit this piece of timber. Alright, so that piece of timber is going to fit into there somehow. So the easiest way to do it is use your centering ruler. What's it called again, Derek? Okay, so from the centre to the outside edge here I've got 53 millimetres on both sides. Alright, so let's centre this up.
Thank you, Derek. Luthier's.
Luthier's, yeah, beauty.
Yeah. Thank you. And good evening to John Parra. Good morning, Dave Rollins and Gary Wilkins. I know there's a lot of other quiet achievers that don't actually sign on to the chat, but good morning to you too.
Okay, so 53 mil. That's 54. Better do it at 53, otherwise I'll be in trouble. Okay, so ruler there. Now I'm going to use square, and I want to square
Good morning, Colin.
Col Hubs, is it?
Yeah.
So I haven't heard from him for a while.
Yeah. Good to see him back online.
Okay, so I've got a mark there. Now you probably can't see it because of this walnut.
It is actually showing up quite well.
Just check my mark. Okay, that's pretty good. Doesn't hurt to check. Now if I picked my piece of timber up and sat my piece of timber on there, I would see that that would probably fit, and it fits beautifully in there. So when we do this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run backwards this way, but I'm going to sit that upside down, and I'm going to use this front edge to cut along that edge there, but I need to keep it up against the fence the whole time. Sometimes that's a little difficult task. So when we adjust the size, put your piece of timber against the fence and bring the whole lot across. When you set up, make sure that between the 2 points of the router bit, they are at 90 degrees to the fence, and then you'll get an accurate measurement.
It's a tricky one, this one.
A very tricky one, but it's a very effective one as well.
Okay, so I can see where you're lining up.
Okay, so I'm lined up on that line. It's just a matter of lock that in. Oh, I moved it. If it's a little bit smaller, it doesn't really matter. I can take a bit off the piece of timber. I just don't want it to be too big or too wide a gap. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to feed straight through there. Right now, the technique here is quite interesting. If you move the timber like so, or move the box like that, you're going to cut a little rebate in here, and it's going to show up pretty ordinary on your box. You might end up having to cut the top off it and put a flat lid on the top. So the technique that I use this part of my hand, and I place that on the top of the piece of timber, and my fingers I have on my fence. Now if you're using a higher fence, of course it's going to be a little more difficult. You probably need to get around a little bit further, but I tend to do that. This hand here is used to actually create that forward momentum. This one here is more this way, and it holds that in place as we cut through there. Now don't go too fast, because that tendency has a tendency to do this with this hand, and that will cause a grief. So just go a nice even pace all the way through and keep your pressures down. It'll slide quite nicely on our desk, so our bench. So ears on, here we go. Now what you can see here is I've cut the rebate on both sides, nice clean rebate, and I've got this little raised section in the middle here. In a longer box, of course, it's going to be a bit wider, so what we need to do is we need to dress that off as well. This and this part are both the same size, they're the same as this. We've got a nice parallel cut to there, so I just have to take that off there. While you've got that router bit sitting in there, this is the technique that I use for that. Gears on. I might have to come around here. And so now we have, there's that little merry-go-round dance again. Now I have, the whole lot is flush. So that and that are all parallel to the bench. Let's see how close a fit I have. Oh, I could have taken a little bit more out. That doesn't matter, I can take a little bit off the edge of here easier than I can take a bit more out of that. I could just move the fence along and just make it a bit narrower, but the point is, what we've created is we've created a little shoulder in here so that the box has something to sit on, or the lid has something to sit on. Okay, so it has that thing there, and anything that sits on the box or anything that slides off the edge of the lid is not likely to go into the box itself. So all I need to do now is make sure that that fits. So once we've got that done, I'll just take all this stuff away here because we don't need any of this anymore. We'll need that. I'll need that. I don't need the round bit anymore. So basically that's the preparation for the box. If I was putting normal hinges in now, I would cut myself a rebate here and here to do the hinges. And the box is prepared, and it's just a matter of developing and building the lid. So we'll okay. Somebody be saying, where's the dust extractor? Okay, let's see what we have in the middle here. And our width from inside to inside is 105 millimeters. Okay, so this needs to be 105. I've got 1 millimeter more than I need. Now when I'm fitting this, what I want is I want a very snug fit. Put a line on there. Now the reason I want the snug fit is I want to minimise the amount of space I have here so that it doesn't touch, but it's a nice fit. Now the space that I have in here has been sanded off the lid, not cut, and that way it's just a nice fit, but I have to have it snug fit so that I can fit the hinge in the back of it. So I'm going to just drop that down till it fits. So over to the drop saw. Take the tiniest bit off. It's got a little furry edge on there. I just need to get a lot of that sand off there. there's my snug fit. It's actually a little too snug. I'll just give it a trim.
That's it.
Perfect fit. Now that's how we want it to be. It's flush all the way around. I've got a little overlap on the front of it, which is fine, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. What I need to do now is put the beak on the front of the box lid before I actually put the hinges in. The hinges come in a little later. Just going to try that the other way around and see if it's a better fit. No, it's the same. Okay, now a little beak. Which was better on the view? Right? The little beak, you can see all the features on the little beak. Number one, it's got a curve on the bottom. It's rolled over at the top and it's recessed down below the top. Okay, so it's got that, and it's also, it protrudes a little bit. You can see where it comes out across here. So all those little features can all be done in three steps. The first thing we need to do is cut the rebate on the bottom of there, right? So on here, I don't know how I'm going to show this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, actually I'll do it this way, I'm going to cut a curve here, like so. Then I'm going to cut a curve over that way, so that we end up with that shape, which is what we've got here. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So the first bit is a box core bit. So I'm going to use just our little 1/2 inch core box bit. So it's quite small. So I'll use that first. Set my height. Now where you set this is up to you. You can set it at any height. I'm going to set it about halfway. Now I need another fence, so I'm going to use this fence that I've got for my rounding over bits and my straight cutter. It's also for the 45-degree angle, so that's the short one that goes across the bench.
What diameter is this, the core box bit?
1/2 inch.
1/2 inch.
Okay, now come around this way again, Penny. Probably have to go back that side.
Ah, that's better.
And so what I want to do here I've set this up so that it cuts half the thickness of the core box bit. You can go a bit more if you like.
This bit has to be taken on trust because we really can't see it.
Okay.
Ooh.
What's that?
Me trying to get the cord out of the way.
Okay, So all I'm going to do now is push that through and cut a little rebate on the bottom edge of that. And I hope I'm in the right height. I might bring it down a little bit more. This is something you might need experimenting with. So get yourself a couple of pieces of timber and just experiment a little bit. Now, one thing I must mention, when I cut my piece of timber, I made sure the piece of timber was wider than I need. So what I will do is I'll cut the beak on it and then I'll trim off the back of it to fit the box once I've got it ready to go. So that should be about right. Push block. So ears on, everybody. And so there's the rebate in the bottom. It's the same shape as the drawing I put on there. So what I want to do now is take the top out. So it's a change of route a bit. Like I said in the preamble this morning, lots of little steps and lots of route a bit changes. But the result is very cute. The route bit I'm using there is going to be my 504. Again, very small. Small radius, we don't want anything too large. You can use the 506, which is the one that we sell. Now here, what I want to do I want to create a little step on the top, and what that does, it separates the beak from the lid itself to a certain degree. So I want to create that little step. So when we set up, you can see down the side of the router bit, you've got a cutting edge on the side of the router bit.
Actually, it's really hard to see, Cole, because I can't get the camera in.
Alright. I'm just going to create a little step by making sure it comes up the right height. It's there. And now all sorts of things happening today. I want to just make sure I'm flush with the roller bearing. And I'll just take a cut through there. It's alright, I got it. Okay, so that's just going to take a cut through there, and what will happen, it will take it to the point of the roundover that we've already created. And it'll give us a little step. So ears on. Again, this is another one where you should experiment. And you can see I've got my little step and I've got my little beak. What I need to do now is to take out bits and pieces and that necessitates a jig. So what I have is I have a shape that I want around the edge of the beak already cut out on here. So it's just a matter of drilling a hole in a piece of timber like that, take that off flush, and so have that flat. So make yourself a little jig and then work out, you stop here, how far it's going to be. So when I look at that down here, I'm looking down on top, I've got that there, and when I turn it over, the same thing, and I do that, my little beak is going to be like that. Okay, so it's only quite small, and again we're working with a small box, so you only want it small. So you can adjust this sideways. You can see I've actually got marks on here where I've actually used it in the past, and little marks back and forth. This flush edge here is flush to the 1/8" straight bit, which is what I'm going to use to cut the material out. So when we run the bearing against the piece of timber here, it runs flush up against that flat surface there. So you've got support on that corner for the end of the piece of timber here, so you don't get any blowouts. Okay, so all I need to do now is adjust it to where I want it, and I'm going to step it back off the point here a little bit, and it's just a matter of moving it back and forth where I want it. And again, a little bit more experimentation, and what we want is, I want this bit here to be stepped back a little bit so it protrudes forward a tiny little bit. So that's what I want there. You can adjust that to whatever size you like, however you want it. And that's why we've got a wider piece of timber than we need. So now it's just a matter of putting a stop on here. So a piece of timber there. Just go over to the other bench and set up my nail gun. Okay, that's my little step on. Just make sure everything is flush. This here is square to your piece of timber too, by the way. Okay, a couple of nails, and then over to our bench, back to our bench.
So let us have a look at that underside.
That's it's not good enough, I've got to pull it off. What I wanted was, you can see here, I'll point that at, you can see the bottom edge of the curve is actually behind that there, and I want them flush. So I've got to change that again. So it's just a matter of pull that off. It's just a matter of making sure that it's exactly how you want it. There. Drink time. Excuse me for a sec. Sawdust. For those of you who are working in a crowded workshop, Dave Stanton's going to be on the air this at 11 o'clock. And I believe he's dealing with decluttering your workshop.
Yeah, I think you better watch.
So, if you're having difficulties with clutter, it might be worth a watch. It probably will be worth a watch. He's always entertaining. So, 2GAS, that's the router bit that I'm using here. Again, another change of router bit. Set your height. And ears on. And there's my little beak. So very cute, they work well, they look good, and as you can see, quite simple and quite easy to make. Now, we need to make sure this is a perfect fit before we actually fit the hinge. Which way did I have it? That way around? Now when I make a perfect fit, I want the front fitting like that. And as you can see, I've got a little bit excess here. So if I mark that, I can take that off. You can see it's a little tight, but that's good. Okay, over to the bench, and we'll just dock that bit off. Be very careful you don't take too much off this. Now the reason I have this snug is for this very reason that I'm going to use here now. I've got a little bit here, I can take that out later, or you don't even have to, you can leave that lip on there, it doesn't matter. What we want to do now is drill the holes for the hinges. Now, to drill the hole for the hinges, I think if you remember in the past, I made a set of little brass drilling jigs. One of those drilling jigs was this sort of one here, and it's basically for a 3mm drill bit, for 10mm material, diameter 3mm of course, and it's set up so that I can sit it on here and drill my hole. Now, one of the things that happens here is that when you try to open it, because it's square in there, we have to round over that square bit. So we need to be in the centre of what's considered to be a 10mm circle, right? What I want to do is I want to create a little gap underneath here before I actually drill it. So a little bit of tape. Choose the back, of course. This was the back. Put a piece of tape on there. Now, one piece of tape is not actually thick enough, so I've got to do that 3 times. For this particular tape, it's only a few thou that it sits up. It's not much. Just to create a little gap. And I'm going to put 3 bits on. That will give me probably 2 thou, which is enough. Might even be a little bit more. I've never measured it. I'm only guessing at the thickness of a piece of tape. And now I'll sit that in place. Flush. Okay, so that's sitting nicely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to clamp that in place because I don't want anything to move. Because it's a snug fit, it's going to be, just checking, it's going to be quite an easy drill set. So it's just a matter of putting this in place. I'm just making sure it's flush on the end. Not going to sit there for me. It's got to be flush because of the way I've made the drill bit, the drill jig. Now I need a 3mm drill bit. And over to the drill press. Check. Wind that up a bit. Now you can tell when you've drilled through the lid because the lid's a different coloured timber, and you can see it coming through. So you don't need much of a hole there. keep clearing it. You see I'm into the lid now. Okay. Flip this over. Make sure I get that right on. So there are my holes. Now we have another outer bit change. The problem here is you've got a hole in there and you can't pivot that because of the bottom edge of the lid. So what we need to do now is round over the bottom half of the lid. That looks pretty good. So I can see we're going to run out of time here. I'll do the best I can. And the router bit that I'm using for that is a bigger router bit. Now this one we don't sell. This is the .510. I don't know if you can see that. It's a round over bit, 510. So it's just, again, 1/2 inch, and it's got a bigger radius on the curve. The normal one we sell is a 508, which will do the job. It's just I found that this one is a little easier to manipulate. Again, same process. Need to adjust the height of it a little bit. And I'm just going to make sure that it just doesn't quite touch in the corner. Which is, there we have it. Again, the fence. Change my piece of timber has expanded and it's catching on the fence. The bearing is catching on the fence. I'm not going to bother it too much, but for this one exercise, again, up against the fence, I'm going to do 2 different passes with this one. So I'm going to pass over the top of that. Make sure you're cutting the right edge off. I'm going to go this way, and then I'm going to turn it up, and I'm going to turn it this way as well. Alright, that way I'm going to get a perfect curve on the radius on the back edge. So ears on. Pretty close to having it fitted. You may need to do a little bit more adjusting. I'm just hoping that is a perfect fit there, and I've got the holes drilled in the right place. Piece of 3mm brass. Now be careful here. I'm going to cut it off. I'm just going to use this. Make them longer than you need. You just have to be careful you don't, when you cut it, cause it to... There's one bit. It's pretty tough stuff. There we go. A bit left over for another job. Take my piece of tape off. Now it's going to be a tight fit because I need to take a little bit more off the sides of the box, but I'm aware of that, and once that's done, it should fit. So as you can see, the lid fits quite nicely. Let's just see if the hinge works. See, what I might do with that is just take the sharpish bits off the end. I'm just rolling that in my fingers as I do it. Just round over the end a little bit. Okay, so that's all I want it to go. It's looking like it's going to work. Now, sit it over a hole, a bench. Okay, so now I need to take some more material off the sides of the lid. We know that, but in essence the box actually works, and works quite well. So just a little bit more tidying up and that will be really nice. You can see it's a little bit snug, but it works exceptionally well. So hinged box. So all I need to do now is trim off the edges, the ends of these, give them a file up and a little bit of sanding, and this is the result. I'll actually get the one that matches. This is the result that we're going to end up with. So it's going to end up with a nice flush fit. Once you've cut those off, we'll then round over the top edges and because we've run out of time, I'm not going to go through that process. Rounding over the edges is quite an easy task, so I'm going to round over that edge, round over this edge here, and then basically put a finish on the box. So I'm going to stop there. I'll show you the finished product next week, but also next week what we're going to do is we're going to start the bigger box, and we're going to introduce a new part to the mini jig that that you probably haven't seen before. It's something that we've been developing over the last couple of weeks, and it's come up quite nicely, and we're going to introduce the new part in the lid building of the next box. So it will complete what happens or what we can do with the mini jig. So we'll end it there. The next parts are a fairly simple, easy parts, so it's not as if you haven't seen it before. So have a look back through our other shows when you see it, where I've rounded over edges and so forth. So that'll be it for this week. So have a good week, everybody. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. And as I said to you, and I've said it in the last couple of weeks, the boxes are for sale. If you wish to purchase one, just give us a call and I can organise something for you. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week, and I will see you all next week.